I am going ahead and introduce Victoria, who is going to talk about hiring early talent and partnering with researchers and clinicians and product best practices. Actually, I might be overcommitting her because I think she trimmed it down a little bit. So apologies. She is the CEO and co-founder of Tori Health, which is a very interesting business serving mental health needs. And I'm an investor. So I'm super excited to hear her talk about this topic. Victoria, are you ready?
Yes, thank you so much, John. I really appreciate it. Again, thank you so much for your support and for being an investor. It's a huge help to have amazing people on your team, both on the investment side and on your day-to-day team side. So I will go ahead and start sharing my screen. Let me know if you guys can see.
I can see it. Looks good.
Perfect. All right. Again, thank you so much for the introduction. My name is Victoria. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Tori Health. And today I actually wanted to have I don't know if I can actually, be more casual in these conversations, but I want to share a real messy process of building a startup in the real life. Internally, we just call it a no bullshit process. And I think this is what all the early stage startups actually crave to hear, and not some polished, advice or some polished story that you might hear on some published articles and things like that. So whether or not you're building if for the first time or you're entering a new area, your first year of building a startup will be very messy. You will have to make a lot of decisions fast. And some of them for us actually turned out quite painful learnings, which is part of any startup. And making mistakes when building a company, I always say is like learning how to walk. The more you fall, the sooner you actually will learn how to get back up and start running. And today I'm going to be sharing 5 mistakes that we have made that maybe will save you a little bit of time, especially if you're very early in your journey. So you have a little bit more time to make your own mistakes. What we do at Tori Health, we are building next generation of high severity mental health and crisis risk reduction care powered by artificial intelligence. Our mission is to increase access to care for folks with complex mental health challenges, including suicidal ideation, who today, unfortunately, are the most underserved and avoided population within mental health. And we do that by offering group therapy, augmented by AI-powered skills coach between therapy sessions, and supported by 10 months of AI aftercare and adherence monitoring. We have recently entered a provider network called Trilogy in the Midwest, serving their 115,000 members, and we are reimbursed by several regional payers in the Midwest as well. And because I'm going to be focusing on the team a lot in this presentation, I want to say that I'm incredibly lucky to have a team of seasoned technologists, psychologists, and healthcare experts. We are supported by medical advisors who are former chief medical officers at Aetna and United Healthcare. And before Tori, I actually co-founded a remote adherence monitoring platform for behavioral health therapists. And I spent 12 years in tech building products for companies like Meta and Instacart. So I'll start by this. When you start a company, and when I certainly started a company, I had a classic expectation of what my journey will look like. And it looked like this in my head. And I thought that happiness, money, mission, team, revenue, everything will hockey stick and will immediately go up and everybody will be like happy all the time. In reality, when I look back at my journey, no matter how long and how many startups you actually founded, the journey looks like this. So money go up and then they go down. Then you find a perfect person for your team. Then they ask for 12 months, for $12,000 a month. Then revenue goes up and then it goes down. The client leaves. And happiness actually does not correlate with any of these things at all. Just so you know, the only thing that stayed pretty consistent was actually the mission, because that was a very important thing that we defined early on, and it stayed true no matter what shit show was actually happening. So why I think it's important to show you this is because many founders, when they start their journey, especially for the first time, they expect the first graph. And when it comes to hiring and building a product, they hire and make decisions based on the first graph and not the second graph. And in truth, when hiring your foundational team and even your co-founder, of course, you have to ask yourself, will these people stick around through this mess? And when the money, the revenue, the clients all like inevitably might go down, what will keep your team together? And that is a good segue for the second mistake that we have made. By the way, this is going to be a meme heavy slide deck, just so you know, so get ready for this. So if you have a gap in your skill set early on, of course, you're going to go to your network and find somebody who can close this gap. And in the early days, we actually did focus a lot on the resumes and the skills. We thought the logo will actually, solve all our problems. We really wanted to hire the best of the best. And it is important, of course, but we did not focus enough on personality and the fit to be an early stage startup. It truly takes a special kind of person to actually join an early stage startup, not only because of the unpredictable pay or sometimes no pay at all if you're just starting out. It also is important to know that all you have for these people when you're just learning is a goal and a timeline and a trust that this person can figure it out and will not expect that you will tell them everything that they need to do. We tried different types of talent. We tried new grads, we tried senior people, we tried former executives, and we have seen it all, no matter what seniority the person has been. We have seen all levels of people sitting and waiting for the tasks to be given to them. We have seen people who asked for, as I mentioned, $12,000 a month. We have seen people who ask for 10% of equity for, one role, like on marketing, for example. So we've seen many different things. But also what we've seen is both junior and senior executives, including our now chief of growth, who came from Johnson & Johnson and Aetna, who told us, I don't care what I will be doing at this startup. I really want to join this mission. And this is actually the signal that we now are looking for, and I suggest to look for when you're hiring your very first foundational team. So what we have learned is that no matter, again, the level of the seniority that you look for, the first hire should be people who have incredible sense of agency. They should be proactive self-starters who not only will not wait until you tell them what to do, you want people who will tell you what you need to do differently because they have the energy and the desire to be part of this mission. And these people are really, really hard to find. And I personally consider the fact that we found some of these people like very, very lucky. But this is the people who will build the foundation of your company. And as in any, building, anything that you build, the foundation is extremely important. Sometimes though, you will need help from very senior people who either are several stages ahead of you or who are executives. And healthcare specifically, what we found is that payers, especially larger payers, want to have chief medical officer on the call. They want to have chief financial officer on the call. And as you're building your early stage startup, sometimes you might not afford, or you simply just do not have these people. I think as Matthew shared in previous presentation, for his use case, for our use case, we found that hiring and partnering with these people as advisors and mentors is very, very important. And again, if you are able to align with them on your mission and inspire them by your mission, you will be very surprised how these incredibly senior people, how much they're willing to do things for you and how much they are willing to help, even if it's for free. Third one is building before selling. This is a classic one. When I was building my first startup, which was a software product for mental health private practices, we did everything that, all the textbooks tell you to do. We talked to users. We thought we validated the demand. We got great feedback, and people were very excited who we spoke with. They said things like, wow, this is so great. This is exactly what I need. I would definitely buy it. All sounds like, wow, this is incredible validation. I should go and build everything and, I'll be rich next month. So we went back and built an MVP. And then when we came back to the same people and asked them to buy, those early wows and validators essentially were not ready to part with the money. So we realized that we had great feedback and praise, but not commitment. And if anything that can take away from this presentation is try to read the book called Mom Test if you haven't already. They actually teach you how to avoid praise and how to look for signals of praise as not a signal to buy. So this is very, very helpful. So when we started Tori Health, we completely flipped the approach. We actually pitched to our first payer, and our model is to actually sell to payers and health systems, and that's how we reach our patients. We pitched to our first payer with a Figma prototype of a member experience. We did not have a finalized product. Once we had a first letter of intent signed, that's actually when we started building. In healthcare, you guys know the sales cycles do not end when you sign a contract. There's always an implementation period, no matter what you sell, a service or a device. There's a period for education, for implementation. So you can always consider this buffer or even ask for a buffer of implementation to even finish your product. And that's what we did. Another big mistake that we made in sales was actually not qualifying our client and being too afraid that the client will leave us as soon as we will start asking questions or asking for money. It truly leads to building the wrong thing, or again, not qualifying the customer and spending all this time to building something that they will never buy. The fourth one, and this is the one that is, I guess, painful for a lot of folks who are coming from outside of healthcare. And I'm coming from tech, and I had to learn this really, really quickly, but underestimating how slow the healthcare moves, especially comparing to traditional tech or big tech. So like a lot of people from outside of healthcare, initially, when I started my journey, I thought that healthcare just needs a better process and my innovation or some innovation and everything will be changed. There's just so much opportunity. Partially, it's true. There's certain processes that we now see are disrupted. But when you sell to payers, TPAs or third-party administrators, hospital systems, you quickly realize that you are not just selling a product or service, you're actually entering their system. And it means that you will have to deal with 10 email follow-ups before you getting a meeting. You will have to deal with 6 months sales cycle. You'll have to prepare the right person for the call. That's why you need to really understand what kind of process they follow. So if they want to speak with a chief medical officer, you better have a chief medical officer on that call. And also waiting for weeks for internal approvals. This is just the reality of selling services to healthcare. So what we've learned and what we do now is we always expect 3 to 12 month sales cycles. And it means that you have to plan your funding differently. You have to plan your, again, like fundraising and your revenue differently from what you would do if you sold I don't know, B2B SaaS for healthcare related stuff. For larger payers, we start with conversations actually that we want to close next year. We start them now. And we are trying to build relationships before we even start pitching. And we, again, always try to match their structure. If they expect certain people on a call, we want to be prepared and we want to lead with credibility. And most importantly, we never rely on just one customer. We always have parallel conversations because, again, like in any business, customers might disappear, but also because of these long cycles, we don't want to put all eggs in one basket and we always diversify. And the fifth one is very good feedback that I wish I had in my first steps as a founder is not trying to be a startup that you're not. So many Silicon Valley founders I speak with, and I definitely had been included in this category early on, usually fall into a trap of modeling their journey after a handful of handful of startups that became successful 15 years ago. And also, they're reading about their journey in some polished article. And sometimes, unfortunately, a lot of founders quit when their journey looks different because they think that they're doing something wrong. In reality, this graph that I showed in the beginning, it's the path for everybody, no matter how much money you raised, no matter how long you are in the journey. I spoke with a lot of folks who are Series D and beyond. This process never is a straight line. It's always a mess. And the problem is that there's just a lot of noise that early stage startup founders have to navigate. YC, for example, tells founders that if they did not have any traction in 5 months, don't bother to, talk to them. They're moving too slow. It's a red flag and things like that. Some investors will tell you that you as a founder have to do all of your sales alone. And that is, the sign of a great business and things like that. Partially it's true, but in reality, again, sometimes healthcare companies do expect sales process driven by a medical officer. So you do need to understand what your customers need and actually match their process and not what your investors or some industry standard expects of you. And if, again, I could give one advice today is do not listen to all the advice that you read about how you should be running your company. Focus on understanding your customers and what their expectations are. Basically, what I'm trying to say is you cannot build a company that is unique by doing everything that people did before you. You have your own path, and this is where the uniqueness and the unique value lies, not from reading what others did. And you learn how to do it by doing and failing, and not necessarily by listening how others have done it. As a wrap up, many early stage startups, and I did too, are trying to over prepare and avoid as many mistakes as possible. In reality, learnings are like all these learnings that I'm sharing and all the folks who are on the call are sharing are only coming from failure and from trying things. And the more learnings you acquire, the better you become as a leader and the better your business will be. And what is helpful for me is to think of everything that I do in the business as an experiment. And this mindset actually really, really changed how you react to some of the failures or setbacks that inevitably happen to you in your business. And all you need to do is to find a team who will be willing to experiment with you. I think that's it for me. And thank you so much for listening. And thank you so much, John, for letting me share some of the learnings from me. I also will leave my details, the details of Tori Health, as well as 2 recommendations for the books that personally I believe have practical advices in avoiding some of the mistakes that you will inevitably have to make.
Thank you so much, Victoria. It's wonderful to see some real honesty about the true founder's journey. It's never a straight line. No matter what people promise you, there will be things that are unexpected that happen. Every customer, every market, every industry is different, right, in terms of what they expect from you as a vendor or a partner. So I think that's great. Yeah, thank you so much for your talk.